Well, hello and welcome once again to Beat the Reset. My name is Tim and I am the guy in the hat. And this morning I'm once again with my very good friend and associate, the Baron of Bitcoin, Bisher from Stormrake. How are you, Bish?
I'm doing well, my man. All the better now being with yourself.
Likewise. It's always a great pleasure. We have a great energy and ready to share some knowledge this morning about where Bitcoin's going to go.
Yes, sir.
And I thought where we would start this morning is let's go back to something called the Bitcoin Harving.
Yes.
And a lot of people seem to not only not understand what that was, but how has it had an impact on Bitcoin? So the question is really, how has this halving, looking at Bitcoin where it is right now and where it could potentially go, what has it done? Is there any impact that has had?
It's definitely worked its way into the market. What the Bitcoin halving is, really simple for the people at home who don't know what we're talking about. It's simply a reduction in the supply of new Bitcoins being mined. That's all that it is. I don't want to overcomplicate it. Don't want to talk about the technicals. All that it is, every 4 years approximately, there is a reduction of the number of new coins that get mined. And for basic economics, what happens when there is a reduction in supply and demand remains the same? Price increases. So every 4 years, we've seen this happen. These market dynamics play out, and the economics of Bitcoin is truly a fascinating subject that is worth studying in and of itself. Moving on. The last Bitcoin halving that we had was in 2020. Bitcoin ran from, sub 9K at the time that the halving had occurred to well over 60,000 within 5 months of occurring. When the Bitcoin halving hit this year in April of 2024, it was a bit of a muted affair. A lot of the, excitement and the run-up had already occurred due to the Bitcoin ETFs being announced of January 11th. So there was a lot of inflows coming into BTC at that time. So we ran up to 60,000 quite quickly. And today we are at 60,000. We've had 6 months of chop where there's been complete sideways price action. And I am here today, fresh off the press, to let you know, thanks to Tim, that the Bitcoin bull run, the genesis, has just begun.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that because this is what people really are here for. They want to know that their investment is a good one. So the ETFs, how do they impact? Now, we heard about BlackRock and, of course, this idea of a Bitcoin ETF. Essentially, first of all, roughly what is it? And secondly, how does it impact Bitcoin?
Okay. So for many years, there was a Bitcoin futures ETF. The problem with a Bitcoin futures ETF is that it doesn't create any pressure on the underlying asset, on the spot price of it, and it's easily manipulated. So for many years, the SEC had a Bitcoin futures ETF approved since 2021, 2022, and it didn't allow for the market dynamics to play out. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins, and everybody was pushing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. Now, Larry Fink, he is an incredibly smart man. He doesn't do anything for no reason. He wants control. He wants power. Money for him is no object. So what is the best thing to do is to control Bitcoin. And how can you do that? You package it up in a nice institutional grade product known as an ETF, an exchange traded fund, and you keep the Bitcoiners and the crypto community happy by ensuring it's a spot Bitcoin ETF because it makes the number go up. And so people aren't really aware of the dangers that are unfolding. You do not want the state, you do not want massive financial institutions to own the lion's share of Bitcoin. I beg you, for the sake of your future and your family's future, to buy spot Bitcoin yourself, because gold bugs have been through a living hell with gold ETFs because people think, oh yeah, I've got my gold exposure, I'm safe. You've got a promissory note. That's all that you have. An IOU that you've got Bitcoin. You can't even withdraw it, you can't touch it, can't do anything with it. That's the same with gold ETFs and spot Bitcoin ETFs. You just have the idea of it. You're exposed to the price, but that's about it.
So would you say it has counterparty risk in the ETF format?
Immense counterparty risk. You're trusting that the exchange is going to do well, that the custodian, in this case Coinbase custody, is going to continue to operate. You're going to trust that the issuer is going to be doing well. You have several layers of counterparty risk, which is like, it doesn't make sense to me why people would want to pursue something like that when you've got Bitcoin, a true bearer asset, which offers you zero counterparty risk, yet you want to wrap it up in multiple layers of counterparty risk. Like, just get the underlying asset and make your life easier. And also, you don't want these massive institutions to own millions and millions of Bitcoin, because then the wealth distribution, the wealth that is meant to come to you, which is one of the most transformative wealth creation events we've seen in history, passes you by and goes to the already wealthy. I don't understand why you'd want that.
So that's the question that's burning in my mind. What kind of investor is going to give up this zero risk asset, essentially, from a counterparty perspective, and swap it for counterparty risk? Why would you do that? Like, what are people thinking they're achieving there?
Well, I think for a lot of traditional investors, for institutional investors as well, they don't understand Bitcoin, but they've heard enough about it that they trust it and they want to get the exposure. But they're only comfortable with getting the exposure in formats that they're comfortable with. They log into their brokerage account, their stock brokerage account, they punch in their trade ticket for their ETF. It's something that they've done thousands of times before, and they've bought, SPX ETFs, which is the US 500 ETFs. They've bought NASDAQ ETFs, which is the US tech. They know what to do, right? It's just another instrument for them. But we have the opportunity to educate people at home and give them real knowledge, and nothing beats the underlying asset. Do not wrap it in counterparty risk. Don't wrap it in a custodial solution. Buy your Bitcoin, withdraw it to your own private wallet, and become a true sovereign individual. And we talked about that in the last week's episode.
Absolutely. And we'll be talking more about it. There's an old saying in media that you've got to treat everybody like they're 5 years old and tell them everything 7 times.
Eli 5. That's right.
That's it. That's the one. So now, of course, we're talking with the one and only Baron of Bitcoin, the man that is going to share with us the genesis of this amazing asset going forward. Now, the one word that really is the friend of all Bitcoin is the word bull. And if you put the word market after it, they get incredibly excited. And we all talk about this bull market that could potentially be coming. And I also want you, when you're sort of talking about this, to share with us what you see, but also where these breakout points are. And, what is the idea of a breakout? There are people that are new. There are people that are listening to this now, some of the elderly people that have... elderly now in Bitcoin is like older than 18, I think. Yeah. So we're ancient, right?
Yeah.
There are people listening to this that are going to ask, what's a breakout exactly? What do we even mean? And when you say things like, and to you, because you're an investor, you speak this language every day, you're used to saying things like it'll break out and run to X and then pull back. What does all this mean? And then while you're telling us that, put it in the context of what could potentially happen here with Bitcoin.
Beautiful. A lot to unpack there, and I'll work through it as best as I can. So Bitcoin has been in a range where it hasn't been trending higher, nor has it been trending lower. Even when the yen carry trade got carried out on a stretcher, we went down to 50,000, which is nothing relative to where we are since the start of the year, where we were trading at around, around 40K. So we're still up on the year, despite the fact that the market had a so-called crash. And we're still, even now, we're at 60,000. It's had a high of 73. So you can see we're right at a midpoint, at an absolute midpoint of where the market has been time and time again throughout all of 2024. So the reason why I say breakout is imminent is because it's like a spring. When you coil it and you put a lot of pressure on it and you keep pressing on this coil and you press, nothing's happening for ages. And then what happens when you let go of the coil? It just, boom, it's like a ricochet. It's going to go up. It's going to fly. That's what we're seeing with the Bitcoin price action. It's been trading in this tight range, coiling. Then there's headlines that, we're heading to the moon when we break up. And then there's headlines that it's going to go down the toilet when we break down. But it's just been in this range for 6 months. The reason why I love a range is that I had seen it in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, when the scamdemic occurred and Bitcoin crashed to 3,000, it coiled underneath 10,000 for 6 months. For 6 months post the COVID crash, it bounced from 3 to 9 very quickly, following the recovery in markets, that is. And we traded underneath 10,000 for 6 months. In a period of 2 months, from November of 2020 to January of 2021, we went from sub 10,000 to 60,000. That was a 6x. Very quick, explosive. That's what we're seeing now. 4 years later, following the halving that we just talked about, that happened in 2020, happened again in 2024. History doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we're seeing now is the genesis of a Bitcoin breakout, and it's got the rubber seal of approval from the Baron of Bitcoin. So I just want to let you guys know that this is an incredible opportunity, because 60,000 has been a level, USD that has been a level that we've retested time and time again. A retest just simply means that we see the price over and over again, and then there's action that happens around it. That's all that is. And the reason why I'm incredibly bullish isn't just because 99.9% of my net wealth is invested in Bitcoin. It's because I've seen this exact price action and exact investor behavior occur before, and I don't want anybody to miss out. And that's why I'm reaching out to everyone today and kind of letting you know that 60K is that line of defense that we had seen in Bitcoin when it was in 2020 at 9,000. Once we start heading a lot higher, the opportunity to jump on that bus at 60K won't be revisited anytime soon, because the next price that we'll see is 80, 90, 100, 110. And where we're going to end up by this time next year, well north of 120,000 US, which is at least doubling from here. And there's going to be a lot of catalysts that are going to drive it. And a lot of people are going to point to headlines after the fact and say, see, I told you, that's why we ran higher. Well, in reality, it was almost destined to do it, because they're going to cut rates. They cannot get off cheap money. There's 35 trillion reasons to be buying Bitcoin right now. Putting aside all of the technicals, there's this incredible marriage that's going on between what's actually occurring on the charts, technically speaking, and what's happening in the markets, fundamentally speaking, such as interest rates, inflation, real inflation, and people feeling the pinch. The answer is a diversified portfolio that has been hand gifted and wrapped thanks to the man in the hat.
I absolutely agree with that. And again, talking to the Baron of Bitcoin, absolutely fabulous answers and well explained too. So, we've spoken about counterparty risk, and that is a major issue. We've spoken about diversification and how that can actually reduce your overall risk. And you mentioned this jump in Bitcoin by a 2x kind of position on Bitcoin. What other asset out there can do something like this, in your opinion? I mean, you've traded everything and anything. What other asset performs like this?
Nothing in the world comes close to it. And the reason why I want people to take advantage and take notice of Bitcoin first is that if you position yourself for Bitcoin in a big way, the rest of the market, the crypto market, follows Bitcoin, right? And so, but they go a lot higher and a lot faster because they've got smaller market caps, lower liquidity. Think of a massive stadium that has only one door to it and everybody trying to get through it. It's going to be bedlam. Right, that's the same thing that happens with all of these altcoins. There's a couple in there that I really like that you and I are both bullish on. Things like XRP, XLM, Hedera, Algo, due to the reasons such as Project Enbridge, MX Technologies. All of these things are fantastic to keep an eye on and research, and you're the man that actually knows it far better than I do. But these assets are going to benefit not only from the Bitcoin bull run, but also from the nefarious actions that are occurring with a government-issued CBDC. And that's obviously being administered and controlled by the central banks, who are the real devil that we're trying to fight here. So we've got a genuine opportunity to not only enrich yourself, but also remove yourselves from the trap and the machinations of the central bank. So it's either buy Bitcoin or be entrapped in a CBDC. Those are the two options that you've got.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to be caught offside.
Absolutely. That was what my entire talk was at the Gold Conference about. Now, just as we come to a close, a couple of things very quickly. I want you to repeat a question I've asked you several times, but I think it's important people continue to hear this. Remember, we've got to tell them 7 times the same thing. You mentioned something about, my question is regarding whether to hold Bitcoin or not. And you often say something about the only wrong position on Bitcoin. And I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to sort of jump starting your answer here. But can you just repeat to our audience the position you feel people should have? And you often say things like the only position that is the wrong position. Can you just talk to that?
So, it's just something that I always tell people on the desk and also when I'm speaking to clients on the phone. The only wrong position with Bitcoin is 0. Once you get off 0, you've got that little bit of insurance, that lifeline in your back pocket. You don't have to be as all in as I am. I'm not asking you to allocate 100% of your wealth into Bitcoin. You can do that if you have the same level of conviction, but not everybody does. Once you get off 0, whether it's a 1% allocation of your wealth, 2%, 3%, 10, 20, 30, depends on how much conviction you have and how comfortable you are with risk, you're in a much better position. And the reason why I say that is that Bitcoin is true digital money. If you fall into the trap of being caught offside with CBDC money, that bridge to Bitcoin can potentially be closed on you forever. And I'd hate for that to happen to anybody that I know about and care about. And that's why I advocate so strongly for it.
Yeah, wow. Actually, just one final question. A lot of people say to me, am I too late? That's a question.
There are as many users today on Bitcoin as there was of the internet in 1999. Can I just repeat that just so that everybody can really soak it in? There are today as many users of Bitcoin as there were users of the internet in 1999. You are still incredibly early, and the data shows that, right? There's about 400 million odd Bitcoin users across the globe, which is the exact same number that there was of internet users in 1999. There is today well over 2 billion internet users. It's prolific. You cannot go anywhere without it. Okay? Same thing's going to happen with Bitcoin because that was a transformative technology that transformed the way we communicate and share information. That was the internet. Bitcoin is a transformative way as to how we share and transmit value across the globe. Do not miss out on this opportunity. You are still incredibly early. Don't worry about the price. The price does not predicate whether you're early or not. The data does.
Yeah, and I feel like the only reason people aren't lined up and around the corner is they haven't either discovered this information or they're not privy to it or they're not exposed to this kind of knowledge. But anybody out there that's in investing that is exposed to this would understand what you're saying is absolutely correct. And it's been one of the most successful trading assets of the last decade, and it'll probably go and do exactly the same in the next decade. So I totally underpin and believe everything you're saying is correct. And you've given myself a re-education in Bitcoin and the audience and so on. So we understand the asset a lot better. Bish, how do we get in contact with you?
You give me a call or you send me an email. There's trade@stormrake.com. My team and I are across that 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Just like Bitcoin, it doesn't stop, neither do we. And you're welcome to contact me directly, 0478 675 399. Hopefully that's in the show notes as well. I love you guys. Stay safe, and I'll hand it over to you to finish it off.
Absolutely, and of course we love having you on, Bish. The audience absolutely loves you. You've become a real powerhouse in the industry, and that's why you have been ordained effectively the Baron of Bitcoin. And we have an incredible team, and you are every bit as respected and part of that team. Well, that's it for me, the guy in the hat, signing off on another fabulous podcast here at Stormrake with my very good friend and associate Bisher. And of course we look forward to bringing you a lot more information and a lot more knowledge. That's really what it is, and I often say that research is power, power is knowledge, and knowledge is freedom. So at the end of the day, I hope you are looking after your friends and your family, your health of course, and as always, make good choices.